sheep and oxen, yeah, the beasts of the field, fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, whatsoever passeth through the paths of the sea. Yahweh, how excellent is thy name in all the earth.
All right, I just went around the horn on accident there with the graphics. I was listening to that song and I thought, I should really publish the single for Psalm 8 and a couple other ones off the Daily Swing. In fact, I had been thinking that for a while. The thing is, I was having trouble coming up with my old cover art, so I'm going to have to come up with something for that first. Hey, they are available on oraclesofgod.org, of course, but it'd be nice if they could be available through the publishing system. For people to just listen to on the services. Since they don't pick up stuff that isn't, like, officially in. All right. Miktam of David, do you indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do you judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Yea, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Break their teeth, O God, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Lord. Let them melt away as waters which run continually. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. As a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a woman, that may not see the sun. That they may not see the sun. Like it more like that. Before your pots can feel the thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, both living and in his wrath. The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the... I was going to say his, but it is the. Sorry, I thought I misread it. No, it says he. It says the. This is the thing with sight reading. The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. So that a man shall say, verily, there is a reward for the righteous. Verily, he is a God that judgeth in the earth. To the chief musician, Alta Shith, destroy not. And the reason that's there is because what we talked about in study in this series, number 88. In the Psalm series, number 88. Not overall. It's just a video study. I put those references there, but I don't think I have any use for them ever. Like, when am I going to ever be like, yeah, back in study 263. I don't even know what's in study 263, quite honestly. But if someone's ever listening, they can always, and they have a question, they can refer to the study they were listening to. Or they can just comment on the video, which is much simpler. Okay. All right. What's cool is that I get so few questions. You know what? I used to get tons of questions is when I was opposing Arnold Murray, and those weren't questions; those were just arguments. I did get occasional questions, and we do get occasional questions here. So I owe one actually. Just that. Sorry. The wicked are estranged from the womb; they go astray. All right, we're on verse 7. You know what? One of the things like I want to point out here again, because it was funny because I like when we were reading last time, I said, well, it's not true. But it is true, of course. It's very true. But, of course, it's not literally true. It's interesting. If you take the Bible too literally and you don't understand figures of speech, you might read this passage and say, well, the Bible teaches that children speak the moment they're born. As soon as they're born, they speak. And the first thing they speak is a lie. They say something, you're not my mom, or something. Whatever, Obviously, they don't. And here's the thing: you know that, and I know that, right? And you know what? You know who else knows that? David knows that. David knows that. He's just using a figure of speech to say they get going early. Like the wicked, it does tell. You know, the wickedness can kind of tell early. In fact, the odd thing about it is people have suggested that, and I disagree with this strenuously. Okay, the idea that, but human beings believe this, so you got to understand. And there's some truth in it. I have no doubt that people with violent criminal tendencies have a shared sort of genetic makeup. You know what I mean? And so if you go through the prison, you can see there's a distinction between the violent criminals there and the rest of society genetically. And they track down some parts of it. I don't know how, but what they're saying is they could probably, well, let me put it this way. They believe that at some point in the future, they could probably screen out criminals from, you know, they could be like, you know how they do Down syndrome screening and all kinds of defect screening with those ultrasounds? Well, they'll want to do DNA testing, and they'll test, and they'll, you know, first they'll detect things like Down syndrome, but then they'll want to do DNA testing. They'll say, well, we see you have a criminal tendency here. So you should abort this child because he's going to be a criminal. I mean, there's no hope for him. You know, that's that. And I think that's extremely dangerous. Well, not dangerous. It's dangerous the way the past 2 years were dangerous. Like, too much safety is dangerous. Like, it's dangerous to crouch. To hide in a perpetual crouch is danger. I mean, we can't stay in the womb forever. The child must be born. He's got to learn to walk. He's got to learn to talk. He's got to learn to get himself going. He's got to work. He's got to, in the sweat of his brow, all the days of his lives, till the dust he returns. For dust he was, and into dust he shall return. But they do go astray early. It does tell, all right? It doesn't mean that it's destiny. I mean, the tell is not the destiny. That's one of the things we learn from Scripture. The Scripture teaches destiny and predestination. Things are, from God's perspective, they're fixed exactly the way He wants them. From our perspective, we don't know what's going on. It's way too complicated for us to see any kind of pattern of, you know, oh, this is how it's going, and predict the future. Not with any certainty. You know, that, I mean, we just can't. And not when it comes to the affairs of things that go beyond things like, you know, physical events, like eclipses, and, you know, we can predict that, but I mean, can we predict the tides of men? You know? Anyways. So the wicked do show up early, but it is unethical and wrong, and and also dangerous. You think, oh well, what could be safer? We'll eliminate all the criminals from society. And I don't know. It doesn't, like, the answer doesn't strike me. But unforeseen consequences always abound when you think of when people get big ideas about, like, messing with the human population, and also. Just I mean, here's the thing. You could say, like, oh, we've aborted millions of children over the past, I can just count 48 years, and 49 this year, I guess, nearly 50 years. And so, you know, if it's criminal, and some have said, and it's been studies done, that the lowering crime rate had something to do with that, because a lot of the people that were choosing to do that also were carrying violent potential, at least according to genetic scientists who think they know what they're talking about, you know, and I don't know enough about it to question them properly, you know. So I can't say, but I can say this is what they believe. You know, the genetic basis for criminality is a ethical problem that people have not dealt with yet. But it's observed here in the Bible. What I'm saying is, this is truer than David knew. We know it's not literally true, but actually it may be more true than we realize, okay? But they don't speak as soon as they're born, no. And David knew that, we know that. The Bible isn't teaching you something weird. Now see, most people know that, right? They know the Bible isn't teaching here that that's literal. Well, it's like, then how are we certain that, like, even in places like Genesis, that we're to take that literally? How are we certain? I just want to know what the certainty basis is. It's like, because of this, that, and the other. Okay. I don't derive that level of confidence from those things. My confidence comes from the Lord and the fact that he gave me his spirit. You know, it's like my encounter with God is always my guiding force as far as like faith goes. So I trust him because of that. I read the scriptures. I believe the scriptures. The prophecies I find extremely suggestive and you know, very helpful. It's like there's no, you know, like being a student of them for so long, I realize how much great and also living life in this world for long enough to see how the scriptures impact how the wisdom contained, how truly wise the scripture is. And how much more than I realized as a young person. It's more amazing than like God just, it's more amazing the way it was made than the fantasy like the Mormons have about the way their book came, like an angel came down and delivered them these golden scrolls, and then after something or other happens, they get destroyed, and then he's got to rewrite it and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's a kind of fantastical story, but like the idea of having dozens and dozens of people write it over centuries and have the wisdom come together in such a cohesive way, and not necessarily, it does cohere. Yes, it does. Now, what does not cohere is snails or water. So it says, let them melt away as waters which run continually. You know, the waters run, they're constantly going away. You ever seen waters running? They're going. They're saying, well, let them go like waters go. Just get out of it. They keep like waters that don't, I just never see the end of it. Just let them be carried away perpetually. You know, that is almost like and there you go. That is like a metaphor for things like eternal torment and stuff. Well, the same kind of thing that when we talk about let them be tormented forever and ever, the kind of let them be carried away with waters which run continually. You know, you bring up this weird scenario. Like nobody tortures anyone forever. There's no point. But we can speak of such things. I mean, you can talk about waters that run continually, you know, as if there's no end. Just let him be carried off. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be cut in pieces. Meaning that, I believe he means the arrows. When he bends his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be cut in pieces. Well, either it could be the enemy, but it sounds more like, this is more of like a passive, well, you know, let's break their teeth, Lord. Let them melt away. Let them be cut in pieces. Oh, whatever. I was thinking about like when he, you know, maybe this is like a metaphor of like the archer bends to shoot his arrows and the swordsman arrives a little too soon. Or I guess I thought of the idea of like finding your arrows all cut up. But as I was thinking about that, I thought that's silly. That doesn't make any sense. Why would he go for his arrows and then like, it's pieces. It's like that scene in Herbie when they open up the trunk and there's a car tire and it's cut in pieces. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like what did he do? Take an angle grinder and cut it perfectly? Like you could have just poked it with one, you know, they went through way too much trouble if anyone knows what I'm talking about, to ruin that tire. And hopefully my video comes back. Yes, it did. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, it's comically done. And so also it would be with the arrows this is a scene out of a comedy. And that's, I don't think what's intended. It probably means that when he wants to shoot his arrows, let him be cut down in the midst of his, you know what I mean? As he's preparing to, you know, it's like I'm sighting in on the, you know, it's like in the moment when they're about to destroy them. You know, as they're pointing the gun at me, strike them down. You know, it goes to like, you think about in the book of Revelation, if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouths and devours their enemies. See, when it intends, it shows the will and the intent to kill, to hurt. And God has promised that in the end times, that any man that tries to destroy his servants will be destroyed by his servants, by the words that come out of their mouths, which like fire devour them, whether that be a metaphorical devouring or a literal one, it doesn't matter. The Lord will protect his servants. And, and you got to understand this. It's like the enemy may not be impressed, just like with Jesus. I mean, the enemy wasn't impressed with him because he wasn't doing miracles for their benefit. You understand? It's like you breathe actual fire on one guy, everyone around them fears and and that can affect the way they use wisdom. So, I mean, it's not always going to be the way out. I mean, literal fire. Sometimes the way out is something lesser. Just like with Jesus, he sometimes just escaped from the midst of them. He just got away conventionally. He slipped out the back, Jack. He made a new plan, Stan. just get out. Get yourself free. That's always option one, flee the situation. That's, fights, things like that. Don't be a tough guy and get involved in the stuff. De-escalate and remove yourself from the situation. As far as if you can, avoid, if at all possible, avoid violence, because we're not supposed to be using it. I know I'm capable of violence just because I've used it, but we're not supposed to. And it's like, so, that's why I need to de-escalate just for my own safety, that I don't do something to hurt. That eventually comes back to harm me, consequences. When you're big enough to kill, you gotta be careful about swinging your fists, man. You can get into big trouble. People have, they start swinging fists, they knock somebody out, they hit the ground, their head hits the cement, or it could be you. I don't know. As an adult, I don't see any room for fist fighting. No point. Now, if you can't do it with words, then I don't know. Like it has to be bullets, I guess. I don't understand. It should be words right down to the end for us. Anyways, it'll be bullets. They'll be bringing the bullets. Really. But then again, it's not like whatever. Depends on the situation. There's a time to kill. There's a time to make peace. And I believe in both times, I do. Just like the Lord does, there's a time for both. As a snail which melteth. That's, ever seen a snail or a slug dry out? Yeah, when they dry out, because I'm pretty sure that's what he means. Because when they dry out, it's just like a little smear. It looks like there's hardly a living creature there. Or a snail, there's the empty shell. They like melt away, they would say, Well, the water escapes, I'm assuming that's what he means, because he would, the idea of melting is a little bit in the scriptures. It's used for, it talks about let the mountains melt. And it means like to have them run down. And it may even refer to things like, because, throughout the history of the scriptures, some of them may have seen lava flowing, and used, or just linguistically, it may exist that people understand that mountains can pour forth molten rock and such. And there are a lot of things which are talked about as melting that you wouldn't necessarily think of as melting. But then when you think about, it does, like the idea of diminishing and becoming to nothing, and though they do not melt, it can be again like this, or like the like we were talking about, somewhat metaphorical melting. It's like, or the idea of them melting could be mean that like talking about mountains melting can mean like a change of government order. It can be a breakdown of government, depending on the context. But again, we don't need to go too much into the melt thing. Let them melt away as waters, which run continually. Let's just look up that word melt away. I just want to, or melt. I want to see if they use the same one both times. And I didn't have the psalm up. Okay. Well, I'm going to take some coffee while I bring that passage up. And I'm also going to turn away from the mic here. And we're mostly good today. Also, I realize it's partly the way I sit. If I sit upright very straightly, like I am right now, you can't probably tell. It's hard to see the angle. But it contributes to keeping my sinuses from becoming too swollen. Because it's not a question of You know, when I'm sick, I'm sick. Or when I have allergies, I have allergies. But sometimes I just have like a thickness. I can feel them thicken. And that doesn't take much. Hold on. Sorry, I should have muted that. All right, here we go. Sorry, this is way too intimate. I feel bad because one guy, that was one of his prime reasons. Other than that, and that I'm a terrible teacher probably. Or bad preparation. He didn't say I was a bad teacher, just the preparation sucked. Okay, sorry. I got to put that in the channel trailer. I'm going to say, I'll take you on a reckless stumble through the scriptures that you've never been on. And you'll see and learn things you've never even knew existed. I think it sounds exciting. More exciting than maybe it is, but hey. All right. Now, I wish I could learn to sensationalize more. That would be kind of fun. You know, attract more. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. It is what it is. And we do what we do. Melt away, ma'ak. And the snow which melteth. Yeah, see, look, that's funny. All right. I'm glad I disregarded the word melt in the first case. This is what I mean about the King James. Because, so I see the word picture. Thing is, like I said, that word is unrelated to all the other times melting is used. Or melt. It's not, so wait. It's a noun then. So this melech is a noun. A melting away. Sure, it's a noun. Huh. What's the verb? Where's the verb? From, okay, from masas. Okay. To dissolve or melt. Okay, the wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels, all that stuff, just standard melt. So it's the noun, it's a melting. Okay, good, it is a melting. Now, as far as like their interpretation as the track of the snail. Now, while that is a very clever word picture, and let's look at the scripture and see if we agree that, does that make sense prophetically or in the psalmist's point? So, let them... Now, the first word was not melt at all, right? It was, we didn't even, let's go back. We're going back. Through all the wacky double pictures and all that. Here we are. That one we did, but this one, to reject, ma'ak, ma'as, that's an SC. Ma'ak, ma'as. And what was the other one? Masas, really? I see the point. Wait. Masas. Okay, see that right there? There's the Hebrew. Mas. Ma'as. Okay, the A there is like a doubling, you know. It's got a short, that little line under it. I think that means like the short A. That's the ma'as or whatever. I'm not good at this Hebrew stuff. Okay. But they're one letter difference in the middle. That letter makes a big difference. I mean, because in Hebrew they have some very small words and stuff. And so I leave it to these scholars who say, okay, that's a different word. And I'm sure because of the form it takes, because that's the original. That's like that's the original form. And when you find it in context, you know, it's a little different. Reject or refuse, and it's used many times. How else is it translate? Wait, no. I would love to see how the lexicon deals with. Where's Psalm in this little... Know that with I understand what the accusative case is, but in Hebrew I don't. And the nifal, that's another. That's like some sort of like the qual and the nifal and the something or other, right? And so whatever. So under that, that's what they're looking. That's the form it's taking here. And so in that form, it means to flow or run. And it's not just here. We also have it in Job. My skin hath hardened and run again afresh. He's probably talking about the sores he had running. And so let them run, you know, and then figurative of annihilation of the wicked. Remember I was talking about, what did I say that was a good analogy, a figure of? I didn't look here first, I'll tell you that. I'm always pleased when, I don't look at I don't like looking at commentaries because I don't want to congratulate myself on how just orthodox and normal I am. If the commentaries are very similar to what I say, it's like, good, we all, I'm glad I wasn't getting tons of criticism anyways. Right, Psalm 58:8, figurative of annihilation of the wicked. I call that a win for the teacher here. As far as that the scholars agree. Anyway, so the word there, though it does mean other things in many other contexts, such to reject, it's interesting that the word to reject also in this context means to flow like a sore. And that makes sense. If you think of Job's sores flowing or as a pimple popping and a tape ejecting from a VCR, I have to say that because I know they wouldn't have had any idea of those things. But there's also a similar kind of reject, eject, like get it out type thing, right? And same thing with the wicked. Let's get them out like waters that run continually, like a sore that never heals. Let them run away. Let them be flowing out, not like the sore, like staying there perpetually, but being pushed away to the infinite regress. And so also as a snail which melteth, let everyone pass away. I don't think so. I don't think it means like an ice cube trail. Like, I guess. I guess because snails go so slowly, I feel like the analogy is really poor. Like running waters are things that kind of make you think of speed, right? And a snail is something that does not make me think of speed at all. Except how quickly they can die on a hot, sunny day. That's what I think about speed. I think about a snail, and maybe that's what David had in mind. He'd been sitting there on a rock watching a snail go. Now, actually, snails will go up in their shell. They won't do, a slug, though, can get really, in hard trouble. You don't usually see them in trouble, but people will get them. But occasionally you'll find, a lot of times people don't realize when they see a dead slug. Because it's just a little black smudge on the cement, But I used to I used to collect slugs because I've had little baby snakes I was feeding, and they ate slugs, and the slugs, I think, I remember collecting them. Then I saw one that had died in a place, and how it was all dried up. I'm like, yeah, that's how it is. And I've seen other things dead like that. I thought, but then, we have words in Hebrew for dry up like a slug. And I think David would have understood that. See, it's so weird, though. I don't know, man. Like the snail which melteth, let everyone of them pass away. I'll let you decide. What do you think it is? Is it my thought? Or is it the thought of the scholars that it's, and I don't speak that word with a pejorative or with a respect that I use it all the time. How can I not respect it? I better have some respect for it. I mean, it's not that without question, of course. We should question all things. Question your tools. My Strong's Concordance, I found dozens of errors in it just with the numbering system. They just got the wrong numbers, and I'm like, oh, they transposed. It just got transposed. It was transposition. It's like instead of 38, it's not as. It's the classic one that had the errors. You got to question your tools. You can question your scholars. You can question me, the things I say. Certainly, I do it right in front of you, so you can understand it's okay. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, though, it's funny because I don't, I argue rather hotly in person, but I don't feel the heat as much as my wife always feels like I get a bit too worked up, and she's probably right. As a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away. So whatever, we'll take that as either they're like a little snail in its shell, just sliding off into the sunset. I don't know. That just doesn't. I don't get it. I think it's more like a snail, like that I dumped salt on and got stuck. Whatever, like a snail pulled from his shell and dried up in the sun. Let them pass away. That's my idea. They'll melt. I liked that it meant reject or something. I was like, yeah, let's go with some reject. Like a snail rejected from its shell. Let every one of them pass away. Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, actually. You eject the snail. Melt here is more like a sore erupting into a flow. As a snail erupting from its shell, let everyone pass. I like that one the best, honestly, as a snail plucked out of its shell. Not plucked, but like rejected. Like maybe they didn't mean, well, wait a second. Because it was quifal or whatever, but there was another nifal meaning. Right? What is this? Oh, to melt. Let me go back. I'm going to bring you. because I do want, this is curious, and I find, though it's not, it's not critical for understanding, right? But I do like doing these once in a while because it is a good demonstration. One, how to research things. I mean, not like this is like some grand how to research things. It's like, no, just how to question things and then go about figuring out what you should, what to, maybe if there's something you should take as a permanent thought. Yeah, so Nifal here, and I didn't bring it up right. Here we go. All right, now I see. See, there's Nifal. I don't know enough about what this means. Because I was verb Nifal, flow, run. Rejected, worthless, to flow, run, but rare and dubious, second form, imperfect. My skin hath hardened and run afresh. Or it could be rejected, like a sore. If it's talking about sores, I don't, the idea of rejecting sores, ejecting stuff, I guess, I don't know, but I don't know enough about language to really make a comment. Here's the thing. The reason I could sit there and try to bumble my way through that lexicon entry and try to piece something together that makes sense to me based on all that stuff you see in front of you. But I don't understand what it all means, and it would be reckless and kind of irresponsible. I mean, I could do it tongue in cheek, like let's have fun, and hey, but I'd have to make sure you understood that is not a serious attempt at understanding if I was to do that. So I'm just going to take what we've got so far and say that's about as much as we need to talk about that to get at least some idea of hey, pick your favorite. I like the one about the snail melting out of its thing, like becoming ejected from it through melting, like it comes out. Maybe before they die, do snails kind of come out of their shell? They die up in there. I've seen where we had some pet snails, and they tended to be you just smell something dead in the thing, and there'd be just a shell. And I don't remember them coming out. I remember someone pulling a dead snail out of the shell. Or maybe I bet it's kind of random. Sometimes they die on the outside, sometimes they die on the inside. Just depends on where they're at when the death angel takes them. The death angel of snails. Like the untimely birth of a woman. There's an analogy. We don't need to have a lot of discussion of the lexicon and what does it mean. It's a miscarriage, right? Untimely birth of a woman, like a miscarriage. That they may not let them pass away. As a snail which melteth, let everyone pass away like the untimely birth of a woman. And that's another reason why I like it, because I like the snail analogy I came up with, because it tracks closest with the idea of the untimely birth of a woman. A snail that has come out of its shell and died is like, and also you see that sense of melting in a sense, because usually they're stuck up in there and then like that they would flow out. And just like an untimely birth of a woman, also her belly being like a snail's shell, also, so I see a lot of comparative there. Let them pass away. And there's a structure like it. If I just hit return here, it'll line up a little better. And we have, as a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away. I did too much. Like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. The sentiment is repeated, to pass away, that they may not see the sun. And I lost part of my words. Undo. Oh, whatever. I can just take an LI. I know where they are. All right, so. Let the wicked be, and so, hey, that's the thing. It's like when I was talking about abortion, it's like some would say, abort all the bad people. But the Lord says, In the parable of the tares, nay, lest while rooting up the tares, you root up some of the wheat also. You're not supposed to harvest the wicked out of season. You're not supposed to judge people while they're in the womb. That's wicked. Judging them in the womb is evil. Judging them morally. You know, physical fitness, that's not a question. Like if you see I know sometimes they say, oh, they have no skull, or whatever, in the ultrasound. I'm not saying then get an abortion. I'm saying then you're going to have a miscarriage probably. Well, some women have carried badly malformed children to term and allowed them life for a few weeks, days, or minutes. And there's nothing, it's like, oh, what an inconvenience. You know what I mean? Oh, I had to go through all that trouble for a baby that's not going to be around for very long. So why not just kill it right away? And also, why just believe that their assessment. They're just looking through a sound wave machine at your baby and telling you it's not going to be healthy, and you're just going to, maybe you should get a second opinion or a third before you make life and death decisions. Always get extra opinion. Never go on the word of one person, especially medical. They're just people with opinions. I had a doctor once after our 5th child was like, your wife needs a hysterectomy. It was just, you're going to have a hysterectomy. Like saying it in that imperious way. That was the doctor, we had removed from a birth. Because it was uncooperative. You don't have to put up with that stuff. I don't understand this tyranny of doctors. It's like, you let a doctor tyrannize you? It's your body. I can't believe we're letting this happen. And it's funny we're talking about that at the same time in a nation where we've aborted all these children. It's like, that's the thing. You say my body, my choice, but on the other hand, it also is a total disregard of someone's body integrity, right? People say my body, my choice, but you understand? It's like my body, my choice. I'll kill you to save myself is what they really mean. And so, my body, my choice. You wear a mask. You get a shot. You die. That's what my body, my choice means to those people. And it doesn't what it really means to them. But what it means to me, I'll tell you that, when they say it. My body, my choice. To protect myself, I'll kill you. It's the spirit of Tubal Cain, If Cain shall be avenged, I shall be avenged sevenfold because I had a reason. So I understand David's sentiment. David's sentiment is saying, hey, the wicked start off bad. Just kill them right away. Why let them be born? Let them not see the sun. Let them all go. And I understand it's like you think like, hey, I don't want to live in the world with the wicked. And God is making a kingdom in which only the righteous dwell. But if right now that was true, or if that had been true in the past, like if like around 1973, God had said, all right, no more wickedness in the world, I wouldn't have been born. And that's, I want the kingdom of God to come. I know it's coming. It already is come. It now is. It's in my heart, and it will be here in reality eventually. But then I think of I raised sons and a daughter, and I think I'd like to see my grandkids. I like to see what happens. In that regard. But, my first loyalty is to the Lord, of course, and not to family or anything, or to country, or to humanity, even. And so, we have to be ready to let go of everything. Because we may be called upon to let go of everything. Spectacularly, I mean, one day Jesus just showed up on, when Peter was fishing. Follow me. He came to Matthew at his receipt of customs. He's sitting there at his table doing his, money counting work type stuff. He was a money man. He said, come follow me. And he just left everything and went with him. It's like, do we have the ability to do that? Oh, but I must go bury my father. Please, I will follow you, but let me go first bury my father. He said, let the dead bury the dead. Jesus' attitude when he was walking the earth he had a very stark attitude about it. As far as like, now is the time to follow me. This is the time. There are times to build houses and plant vineyards and all that, but this is the time to drop everything and follow me. And those times that time before he comes, there'll be a time like that again where it's time to drop everything and follow Jesus. Right, so the wicked will pass away. And it's understandable why sometimes you look around at the wickedness of the world and you just want it all to pass away. Remember, the mercy of God that makes you live is also there, that they may also, if perchance they would receive the mercy of God, that they may also receive life everlasting, life from the dead, through Jesus Christ, through the sacrifice, through his blood, through faith. The mercy of God that brings you is also what waits and does not execute wrath immediately upon the wicked. That which does not execute wrath immediately on the wicked is also the mercy that gets you into his kingdom. The wrath that is also against you. We always count ourselves, we don't always, but we're often in danger of counting ourselves out as being the Lord's anointed. And we are out of God's wrath. But once we were the children of wrath. David was not. David was, he was always God's chosen. He was one of God's chosen people. He was God's anointed king. You know what I mean? And in some ways, we're similar. Because I was never not a Christian. I was born into a Christian family. I was raised to be a Christian. I was challenged as an adult as to whether I would stay a Christian, and I did. And I have walked as a Christian my whole life. But also, I know that as a Gentile, I was not born, while I was born into Christianity, Gentiles were not born into the covenant the way the Jews were, the way David was. And since we're born into Christianity, we have different thoughts about these things too. Because like I said, the mercy of God, David knew mercy, but also it's understandable because the wicked do deserve wrath. Just having received so much mercy, and this is probably from the younger days of his life. Yeah. Miktam, remember, means engraven. These events are engraven. Before your pots can feel the thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind, both living and in his wrath. Okay, right? The righteous shall rejoice when he seeth the vengeance. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. Wow, we went 47 minutes. We've been going slow. That's all right. We'll finish the psalm. It's only a couple more verses. Let's take the last verse. So that a man shall say, verily there is a reward for the righteous. Verily he is a God that judgeth in the earth. To the chief musician, Altashith, destroy not. So, before your pots can feel the thorns. To me, that's a double or triple. I'm not sure what the. It's kind of funny because when I see pots, I just think of butt cheeks. I'm sorry, and sitting on thorns, which I'm pretty sure not. But he's talking about like the thorns. I suppose being the kindling for a fire underneath a pot. Okay. Before they feel the thorns, for some reason, it's like that. I was just thinking of like sitting on the thorns. Before you feel them, they're gone. But anyways, it's not sitting on thorns, okay? Definitely not. But before your pots can feel them, because it talks about feeling, and pots don't feel anything. See what I'm saying? This is obviously very metaphorical. Right? We're talking about very poetic language here. Pots, that's a personification there. Pots cannot feel. Nope. Only people and the living things can feel. A pot does feel thorns, though, because it just, what we mean is when we know it's hot. You know what I mean? When a pot starts feeling the heat, it starts changing temperature, right? That's right. So when we, like let's say you have a fire. I don't know if you've done this. Oh, I could do it right here. I got a cigarette lighter. I call them cigarette lighters still, even though I don't smoke cigarettes. Here's a lighter, right? And have you ever done this? Right? There's a fire, right? And I can put my finger, oh, look at that. And I'm going to sit there for a second, right? And my finger, when I did there for a second, I felt the heat. That's why I took it away. But I mean, I can literally move my finger there through at such a speed like this that I don't even feel the heat of it if I go fast enough, right? The faster you go over a flame, the less you feel it. And everyone, most people learn that at some point, right? I mean, as kids, boys certainly do. If everybody wants to get a hold of fire eventually you learn about fire, and your dad might show you that trick if you got a dad. I just showed you if you didn't have a dad, and I showed all my kids. I would go, oh, look at kids. Not actually, my dad was more of that. He'd be like, here, watch. He'd be like, da 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 da, and do stuff like that. I didn't really do a lot of that. Early on, I did. It's because I had so many kids. Things got different fast for me. So what it's saying is like, you put a pot down on thorns. And I assume it's for burning, because thorns, he is, in many places in the scriptures, it is referenced as what thorns are good for is to kindle a fire. Thorns are good for kindling a fire. And I believe the thorns here are put for the fire that is kindled by them. Okay? As I was saying, like when you go, see, this is a perfect example. When I was 19 and I wanted to read the Bible, this is the kind of thing that would just totally ruin me. Because I would have not understood this at all. I mean, and maybe you could, and if you were, how would you do that organically now? That's what I want to know. And I would say basically, well, if you have a concordance or a piece of software that functions like one, like I have my Bible collection, I could look up thorns like this, and I like doing this. It's fun. Thanks. I don't want system help. Thorns. Okay, thorns. Now, I used 47 times, and this says up there 47, but I really just wanted to get to, like, let's see. Where's the place? Grapes, figs, and thistles. Some foam among thorns. Wait. I just wanted to find an instance of thorns and kindling. Like example, here's one example of thorns. For wickedness burneth as a fire, it shall devour the briars, and thorns shall kindle in the thickets of the forest. But all hills should be digged with thorns. There's also talk about when they come up, briars and thorns. That's usually of nature taking over. But there is also, see, look at Ecclesiastes 7:6. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This is also vanity. See, thorns are typical kind of kindling in the ancient Near East. So I got stuck in those Isaiah references, which are very much all there's another one, Psalm 118, thou hast 12. They compass me about like bees. They are quenched as the fire of thorns. The fire of thorns is easily quenched because you're making it with thorn. And I don't want you to think of individual thorn needles. I just want you to think like a thorny shrub that's like this woody, thin-sticked, dry kind of shrubbery used for kindling. And a fire made out of just kindling is easily put out, as opposed to like, a fire made out of logs, which is not easily put out, and not as easily, that's for sure, right? So there's a good example of fire and thorns. For your pots can fill with thorns. Do I need one more? Whatever. There was one where it says like good enough to kindle with whatever. Well, here's another. Here we go. One more. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or standing corn be consumed there. Again, thorns are considered kindling. There we go. So I think I sufficiently established that. So that's how you could find out something like that. But when I was first studying at 19, I didn't know about tools like that. Well, they didn't exist, actually, not that software. And there was no Bible Hub, or the internet was brand new, actually, because that would be 1992. It was brand new. Literally, we weren't talking about it yet in 1992. The next year we were. Like, it existed. I played on computers in college, but nobody was connected to any service yet. It hadn't yet really become a public thing. Not at at college yet. And that was one place where it took off big pretty fast. It was really when I came back. All right, sorry about sniffling without muting it. Okay. So again, before your pots can feel the thorns, so it's put for the fire that is kindled by them. So before the pot before it feels the fire, meaning like just like that, you're gonna put your fire. And why is he using that analogy? Well, the question at the beginning: do you indeed speak righteousness? Do you judge humanity? And he's basically judging humans as evil and wicked and bad judges. And so therefore not really worthy. And so these he is likening, and he often likens the wicked to thorns. In Isaiah chapter 28, one of the references I didn't bring up actually, who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? I would go through them. I would consume them together. They're highly combustible, not considered worthy of, but we consider them very troubling. The wicked are like thorns. They're troubling, but to God they are nothing. They are something that is ready for burning. They burn up in the fire. And before your pots, meaning your life, your works, the things that you're cooking up, or whatever you've got protected in your pot. Before your pot, your soup, your life goes on the thorns to be cooked, so to speak, before they can get their heat on you, they're gone. I mean, they can't touch you. Before you can really feel the thorns, he shall take them away as with a whirlwind. Whoo! Was blown right out from under you. Both living and in his wrath. That means, just like it says, they will go down quick into hell. Meaning, he's going to take them away. It means a conscious experience of God's wrath. When it says a living, they'll be taken away living. You will experience God's wrath alive. And that's put there for notable things. Here's the thing. The Bible knows how to talk about things, people being harmed while they're alive. It does. There's plenty of places where it talks about that. Well, not plenty. There's just several. Here's one. But again, the idea of an eternal state of such, I don't find any cause to actually believe in that. Because it's likely more metaphor than it is literal. The literal truth is just a second death, which is the thing that should be taken seriously in Revelation 20, whereas the others should be taken symbolically, as opposed to where they reverse it. It's just a choice if you think about it. Because though you make the choice, you'll take all the evidence for one point of view on one hand and all the evidence for the other point of view on the other hand. You should stack them up and compare them. Which one not has more evidence, but what's the quality of evidence? And, because I think there's more evidence for annihilationism, and I think it's better quality too. That's actually the truth. On the other side, it's poor quality and minimal. And most of it can be actually ruled out as actually direct evidence for things like eternal torment. You actually end up left with barely Revelation 20. Meaning, that's the only place I don't have a really good argument against. Other than, well, you've heard it. I think that's actually a really good argument, but I don't have a disabling feature to it. Meaning, like I can look at passages like Revelation 14, where it talks about them being tormented in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And I'm like, well, that's not, they will be banished forever from his presence, which is what it talks about as their final destination. So this is some intermediary. This is the time of judgment. They're before him, continually tormented as they stand before him. Until they be not standing before him, I expect it shall continue. You know what I mean? But they're not going to stand before him forever. That's for the righteous. The righteous stand before God forever. The wicked cannot stand before God. That's the whole point. They can't. They burn up. They can't stand before God. They're consumed. He consumes them like a whirlwind. Consumes them alive. Again, it happened. They know their judgment. That's the only reason for the resurrection that's spoken of after the first resurrection. There is, before the second death, all the dead are raised to be judged. It's not called the second resurrection, but it seems like it. It's not called the second resurrection because it's not permanent. It's more like they're just brought back to life temporarily to be judged. And taking away the enemy alive is good because then it's not up to you to kill him or anything, It's God's promise that he's like, I'm going to take care of the enemy and you don't have to kill him. The righteous shall rejoice when he sees the vengeance. We long for God's vengeance. People, I'll be online occasionally and I'll see, I remember I don't go often on different social media, but I'm not going to label which one. It wasn't Facebook or anything, but it was just one of the other social medias. And someone had some sort of meme about, it was like, it was just a sketch of like a person having their neck chained to a millstone, and they were being, and they were sinking down in what appeared to be water, And it was talking about the fate of child molesters, It's like, and I understand. People long to see God's vengeance on those who do wickedness, on those who harm the innocent. Just remember, careful what you wish for, lest you be found to be a harmer of the innocent. And I'm not saying, hey, God is going to punish those who harm the innocent. There's no doubt about that. I'm just saying, in your thirst for vengeance, remember the mercy you received. So we will rejoice when we see God's vengeance. That's for sure. I don't think there's any going to be second thoughts about it. When God carries out his vengeance, it's okay at that point to rejoice in it. I don't rejoice anticipating someone who I know suffering God's vengeance, even if they're an enemy, because I continually pray for my enemies as if they could be made into my friends, which the Lord may do, but I don't know. So I'm careful about that. You've got to be wary of your enemies. And there are those who you definitely consider permanent enemies. If they continually reject, there's no point. Then let them show some sign. Let them show something. Let them show an ounce of remorse. And then perhaps they can be forgiven. I forgive things as I don't hold any grudge against anybody. But I don't, but as far as meaning where I need to get back at them. But enemies I hold away from my life, He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. Well, the Lord Jesus is going to make the blood flow to the horse's bridle in a certain location. And the idea of washing your feet in the blood of the wicked means the wicked are going to shed their blood on the earth. Their blood is going to be there, and you will walk through it. And if you want to come to Jesus, you're going to walk through the blood of his enemies to get there. So to speak. I mean, because he's going to come and make a great slaughter. And to approach him, like it says, wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat? Why are you covered in blood, Jesus? Is that from the crucifixion? No, that's not my blood. That's the blood of my enemies. That's what he will be wearing. Blood-soaked garments, and it'll be the blood. I wanted to say, no, the blood of 100 million men. 200,000, is that 100 million? Or is that 200 million? Oh, 200 million men, yeah. So that a man shall say, it's Armageddon. So that a man shall say, verily there's a reward for the righteous. Yeah, because when you see the wicked and what God has in store for them, I'll tell you what, the pandemic is kind of getting over good. They don't want it to end, but it's ending whether they like it or not. It should have been a long time ago, but whatever. Yay, here we are. You understand, in Illinois yesterday, they finally lifted the mask mandate. So, and all the other restrictions. So, as far as I know, it was the end of COVID stuff. And they're keeping an eye on this situation. Yeah, you do that. Just keep an eye on your plate. Our governor's very overweight. Yeah, so we see all that happen, right? We get over it. Okay. If you endured things here and now, good. That's a good test. You see what you're able to do, what your weakness is, or whatever. I learned things about myself. You may have learned things about yourself. Now you got to consider, what about a even more dire situation occurring? Meteor strike, nuclear war. Geez. Yeah, whatever. They will use that as an excuse to try to implement digital currencies, digital IDs, and things that look an awful lot like a mark of the beast, and which I will regard as a mark of the beast. I would regard all that stuff as non-starters. You know what I mean? Just because that's just, I think, the wise position. I'm not up for any of that. Though I don't think in and of itself an idea of a digital currency is the mark of the beast. Just like the mark of the beast, though, it's just a more perfectly wicked way to exclude you. Like I said, throughout the pandemic, they proved you don't need a digital ID or anything. All they needed was to make you put a scarf on your face. Mark yourself. That's all the mark of the beast is. Mark yourself as belonging to the beast. And you can join society. They don't need all this stuff. But anyways, they're going to try to do that stuff again. And all that stuff, since it's like the mark of the beast, it's wicked. It isn't the mark of the beast. Digital currency is not the mark of the beast. That is all. None of that's the mark of the beast. But it's a lot like the mark of the beast and should be rejected because it's similarly totalitarian, tyrannical, evil, kind of Mark 13 Beast of Revelation type wicked, evil, tyrannical ruler stuff. It's only a type of thing that the most evil kind of leader imaginable would do. That's why it's in Revelation 13 as the action of, this is what the beast does. He's so evil. He's like Satan incarnate. And you know what he does? He makes everyone get a mark so they can't buy or sell unless they agree with him. Cancel culture, all that stuff. It's exactly like the way Satan thinks. You know what I mean? They are his children carrying out the same kind of wicked, tyrannical type of governance over us, small and great. It's the same spirit. And they're ready for him in that way because people are longing for this kind of control everyone. We're going to get control of everybody. They want to do that. Like hell. Not going to do it. We will not allow that. They can kill us. I mean, that's your option. You can kill me. Then God's vengeance will be harsh. Don't touch me. I don't recommend it. Don't recommend it. Yeah. He shall wash his feet in the blood of the wicked. So shall a man say, verily, there's a reward for the righteous. Yeah, when you see when you go through all that you'll go through to reach God's kingdom, if you walk through the blood of the enemy, the way David did, to reach God's ultimate justice, the vengeance he promised on the wicked, all those who oppress and destroy, all those who you patiently endured, who you prayed for but in vain because there was no repentance, because there was no, you prayed for them, but they never had an ounce of remorse, and squandered every day, every hour, every minute of their lives where they could have had a chance to turn to God and restore themselves to some kind of semblance of righteous relationship with heaven, but they refused. Yeah, there's a reward for the righteous. When you see the wicked all put, through the blender of the 100-pound hailstones, chopping and smashing their bodies into multiple pieces, with their organs splayed everywhere, and the blood and the guts and the bone and the broken pieces everywhere. That won't be blood. It'll be a human body soup. Little bits of broken brain in the midst of it. There's a reward for the righteous. There's a reward for the wicked too. When you see the vengeance, verily, there's a reward for the righteous. Just not having to, just walking over those. Because what they will have done by that point, good, good. I couldn't have done it better myself. I imagine what I'd do if one of those people came into my, immediate wrath. I found them harming one of my children. What would I do? I'd stomp their skulls in. But Lord, you outdid it. You not only stomped their skulls in, but their rib cage, their femur bones, their feet. You chopped them into bits. It sounds terrible, but I mean, they're going to be 100-pound hailstones. That's how I say, people, you got no stomach for it. Well, you got a stomach for hell. You believe in eternal torture. You're going to be tortured forever. Grandma and everybody. Come on. Wake up. It's like these things aren't permanent. You got to get used. I mean, they can be made permanent, but this one isn't. I don't got a guaranteed lease on this. I want it, though. I want to keep this thing. I don't want it being smashed to bits by the Lord in vengeance for all my wicked deeds. Because I did thinking, oh, what's a big deal? Nobody's looking. God's not going to judge the world. That's what they say. There'll be no judgment. There'll be no wrath. We can just do this. They think they're like gods right now. The leaders, the power elite. Oh, they'll be shown they're not. They'll be shown they're not. We can guarantee that. Okay? So that's a long study. That's good, though. We got to the end. Verily, he is a God that the judgment has to come here. That is important. It must be, the judgment of God is not, it can't just be this metaphor. It has to actually, not metaphor. It can't be like this theoretical thing. It can't be just a structure. This intellectual structure under which we kind of operate. It has to be something that actually meets reality. Okay. Thanks for joining this study. Sorry we were a little long, but, hey, I thought it was worth. Sorry it's so different. At the beginning, it's like all academic, and then it gets kind of yelly. All right. Here we go. Closing music. New song, Maybe Today.
All sheep and oxen, yeah, the beasts of the field, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever